It's always fun to come to groups like this because I like small groups that have a lot of fun. Life is often short, and you need to enjoy the process as they go through. Because the end result's not so much fun. It's the trip that inspires everybody. So I'm very happy to be here, and I guess I go there. Very happy. I do want to thank Rod for settling the labor issue down in the board, because it has been a long time, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Everything in life has a price tag. Boy, you need to keep track of that. Everything in life has a price tag. And this is a picture of the port. There's 2,500 acres down there on the tide flats that you own. The port belongs, even though it's called the Port of Tacoma, the port belongs to the people of Pierce County. We have 5 elected officials, and we're all elected on a county-wide basis. And our job, as I see it, is to maintain a competitive port, long-term financial stability for the port, creating jobs and economic opportunities for other people as well as ourselves. And we're different from a business. I treat it as a pure business, but we're different from a business because on the side, we're also responsible for environmental cleanup. Our job is to go ahead and take old properties, clean them up, and put them back on the market for future use. And that's a very good thing to do, and it's also a very expensive thing to do. That a private business wouldn't do that for a single business opportunity. So today I'm just going to say a few words about what's happened lately in the port, the last year, some of the major events. I'll say a few words about the competitive nature of our business. We are going through a very titanic change in our business, like it or not, and we have to adjust to meet that, or we're going to be in a world of trouble. And I'll say a few words about that. And I'll talk about the Seaport Alliance, because you've all heard about the Seaport Alliance, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. We don't have a Seaport Alliance yet. We agreed to look at developing a Seaport Alliance. There's a fine detail there in the technicalities of the reason, but I'll talk to you about why that's so important. Let's just talk about this last year. We did some great things this last year. I want to talk about 2 of the major announcements we made at Tacoma. You know, our past history is that we go ahead and we lease property. We're a leasing port, essentially. We lease terminals to, we lease terminals to shipping companies and who bring ships in, and we have 25-year lease, 20-year leases, 30-year leases, and most of them are 20-year leases. We wanted to take a look at diversification. We put together a strategic plan here a couple of years ago, and we also, besides the strategic plan, we put an implementation plan together, because strategic plans don't mean anything unless you go through the implementation stage and tell everybody how you're going to get this job done. It's just a brochure. So we have a very good implementation plan. And one of those things on our implementation plan, because the world does change, we want to diversify. And when I say diversify, we want high margin diversification. We just don't want to diversify. We want margins of the new business that compete with the current container business. And one of the neat things, the life-changing things that are going to happen here at the port is Puget Sound Energy, realized this last year, announced a new liquid natural gas facility down at the tide flat by Tote. And the purpose behind that is the Environmental Protection Agency has changed the sulfur rules on oil for ships. So if you're within the 200-mile radius of the United States, you have to use 0.01% sulfur. That is very possible, but it's very, very expensive. Liquid natural gas is the solution to this problem. Tote has made a huge investment in 4 new ships, and they're going to retrofit the ships, and they're going to put liquid natural gas on it. The price of natural gas is back to what it was when I was in business. The forecast on natural gas is to keep the same price for the next 25 to 30 years because there's just gobs of natural gas. The impact of natural gas on atmospheric cleanliness is just tremendous. When I ran Simpson, I could burn oil or I could burn gas. If I had to burn oil, I had to keep my eyes out open all the time to watch what was happening. If I put gas on, I just put gas on, I went home and went to bed and forgot about it because it is a very clean fuel. And so that meets a lot of needs, and its competitive pricing will go ahead and encourage other shipping lines to go ahead and change their fuel system to liquid natural gas because they can pay for it that way. even the new ferries that are coming online will most likely be liquid natural gas. So what we're starting here at Port of Tacoma is a new situation for us. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to change the shipping business in the Puget Sound area and between us and Alaska. So it's a great opportunity. Here again goes $400 or $500 million in the ground. Oh, by the way, we didn't spend the $400 or $500 million like we do on a terminal. Puget Sound Energy is going to spend the $400 or $500 million. The other great thing about that, another move, is the old Kaiser site that we tore down and spent $35 million cleaning it up. We're now putting that back in the market. It's been a few years since we've done that process. But Northwest Innovations Work has announced a process where we're currently leasing out 89 acres, I believe it is, to the old Kaiser site to Northwest Innovations, and they're going to put an ethanol plant in. And what they do is they take natural gas, it's piped in, they convert it to methanol, they put it in huge ships, and they ship it to China, and it replaces coal. That project, when it's completely done, is $1.8 billion. That's a B, it's a big B, $1 billion invested in the Port of Tacoma for the same margin as container business. So both those jobs, so you have over $2 billion being invested in those two jobs by private companies, and you'll have 500 permanent jobs associated with those. Plus, you have, I don't count construction jobs because they kind of come and go. There's a lot of construction people that will be used to build those two things. Both those projects are high. The LNG plant is the EPA is very much behind the LNG plant because they want to see that change happen. The state of Washington is very much behind the Northwest Innovations Work project, and so that'll be a great job. In both those projects, the gas is piped in, so there's no infrastructure impact at all, except for the 500 jobs. And I guess we can take 500 jobs and put them on the roads. And talking a little bit about the roads, we have worked with Tacoma, City of Tacoma, and we are in the process of getting ready to tear up the Port of Tacoma Road and fixing it. As soon as we get all the Volkswagen Beetles out of the chuck holes, we're going to go ahead and dig it up, and we're going to replace that, and that job's going to be done by the end of the year. And it's all going to be designed for a heavy haul, because with our announcement of our growth down there, we broke 2 million cans this last year, and Seattle broke 1.3 million cans. That's when I had to throw that out. So with all that extra traffic, we need a facility that'll go ahead and handle that kind of traffic. So we expect to get that job done very quickly this year. The other great announcement, we've been working with Fife, and Fife has got money now, and it's the Port of Tacoma I-5 interchange. That phase 1 is going to be started this next year because that's been totally funded. That'll change the queuing line coming off I-5. That'll change how trucks come off I-5 and the Port of Tacoma Road skip over and get straight in. And engineering studies says that's a fantastic way to reduce the traffic on I-5. It takes a lot of load off of Port of Tacoma Road. It'll be a one-way road, also Port of Tacoma. There's 3 phases there. We're going to do the southbound situation come on the port, and then the northbound situation come on the port. But on the east side of I-5, that's phase 2, and we're trying to find money for that also. So that makes a huge change in the traffic around that area. Plus, it should take off some of the load of 54th. If you ever try to cross 5 on 54th at noon, it's a hope for the best. And we take a tremendous toll on 5, so we're there to help support 5 to make this job better for both of us. The other thing, part of our strategic plan is, and it'll fall into might make more sense a little bit later on in my presentation. We're in the process of rebuilding the Central Peninsula. That's Terminals 3 and Terminals 4. And we've done Terminal 3. We just announced that we're going to do the environmental cleanup for Terminal 4. So like all other people, we dig a hole and we find all kinds of stuff. So we just authorized $19 million of environmental cleanup underneath Terminal 4. We tore it down. We got to get that stuff out of there. The chemical that came there was from old bottom paint some years ago, and it deposited down there. So you have to keep digging until you find the end, and you have to clean that out. And that estimate for that was $19 million. And then when we get through with that, we have a hole in the ground. Then we have to finish up Terminal 4. That's $144 million. And then we have to replace our cranes, and cranes are about $10 million, and we need about 10 of those. So we get to be very big money very, very quickly. And I want to talk about one of the reasons why we have to do that. It's a great event for this last year. I want to talk a little bit about the titanic changes that are going through our industry. The container businesses have lost mega dollars, just absolute mega dollars, and it creates an attitude. If you lose enough money, you too will change. And these are people who don't like each other. They've hated each other for a long time, but they've gone ahead and said, we can't take this anymore. We're going to stop doing this because we can't lose billions of dollars every year, say in business long term, even if you're country sponsored. You can't do that. So they're making changes in their operations that totally impact the Port of Tacoma, the Port of Seattle, and every port in the country. They've formed alliances. So we had a couple of dozen shipping companies. They've gotten together and formed 3 or 4 alliances where they don't manage each other's business, but they share ships and they share terminals. Everything has to be full because to make a ship cost effective, it has to be full. You can't ship a half-empty ship. So they're doing that. And the other thing they're doing is they're going to bigger ships, anything to reduce the cost. And to give you some of the competitive things that we're going through, this is a map that shows the United States. I don't have a pointer here, but I'll do that. 80% of the market for the United States is on the East Coast. It's Chicago East. That's where the people live. So if you can drive 500 miles from that East Coast, you've covered most of the population. The only population density center that makes any sense on the West Coast is the LA Long Beach. Seattle, Tacoma, we're not population density centers. We're optional ports. We're ports of choice. We're discretionary ports. They have to go here. They have to go to LA Long Beach. So you take the market chain, you come from Southeast Asia, you come from Asia, you can go down to LA Long Beach, you have to go down to LA Long Beach whether you like it or not, so they're going that way because that's where the infrastructure is. You can come to Seattle, you can come to Tacoma, or you can go through the Panama Canal route and go strictly to the market. The advantage of that, going through the Panama Canal, is they get to keep the entire shipping fees. Because if they come to the West Coast, the rest of the shipping fees goes to the railroad. If they go through the Panama Canal, they get to keep that. So it gets down to their own P&L and their capital asset. If time is an element, they just go to the ship. They got plenty of ships. There's a huge surplus number of ships out there. So it depends on how their economics works out, which way they're going to go, but they will have that option, and they'll have that option about a year. The other stressful thing that's going on is, as when I was younger, Japan was a low-cost manufacturer. That's long since gone. It went to China, and even that started going to Southeast China. That's all changing now also. It's going to Vietnam, Indonesia, and those areas. And as those areas become the low-cost manufacturer, because we want low-cost goods, that puts the Suez Canal in place. It's much closer to come through the Suez Canal to the East Coast than it is to come around this way. And so that's going to change the market also. I will come up with some good news here in a minute. But I think it's important for everybody to understand what the issue is all about. So this is this is an optimistic chart. It doesn't show the West Coast has lost market share to all the other ports in the United States, even though it has increased. I want you to take a look at that blue line from 2000 to 2013. This is an economic survey that we did that combined the Port of Seattle and the Port of Tacoma. Over the last 13 years, we have lost 30% of the West Coast market. The bottom line, you see right here, the bottom line is the total container traffic for the ports of Tacoma and the ports of Seattle combined. And from my impression, that looks like a pretty straight line. So that's got to change. We can't stay like that. If we're going to invest a lot of money, we can't change that. That line has to go up or down. It has to go up or we're going to get our money back. So these are the issues that we're talking about. The other issue that makes this competitive thing a little bit difficult is this is a quick chart that just shows the utilization of the ports of the United States. And you see the Seattle and Tacoma combined, we have the poorest utilization, which means we essentially have too much capacity. So we either have to get more business or we have to reduce the capacity, because you can't raise the price unless you have the capacity, unless you have utilization up. The biggest problem with that is if our terminal operators don't have enough volume, they are not profitable. If they're not profitable, at the end of their contract, they're going to move to where they can become profitable. And that's not good business for any of us. So we have to find ways to make our customers profitable. When we landed the NYK project down here, we worked with WT, that terminal. It wasn't for us, but we recognized if we didn't help WT become profitable by getting more business on their own, they would not be there long term. And so that's what we did, and that's why we did that. And our whole objective is to raise that 45% up to about 65% is a nice number. Anything over 60% is a good utilization number where our customers are profitable. So the other big move that they're making is, this is an example here. I just got 2 quick slides. And the old ship size of 4,600 TEUs. The TEU is a 20-foot long can. So you see 20-footers out there, 40-footers out there, but it's a 20-foot TEU. The old ships are 4,800 TEUs. New ships are 14,000 TEUs. Our customers have already told us they're getting ready to bring in 13,000 TEUs, where the old number is 8,000 is pretty normal. People are announcing now 18,000 TEUs for the Panama Canal. They're buying 20,000 TEU ships, and they're buying 22,000 TEU ships for the Asia-European trade. Going from 4,800 TEUs to 14,000 TEUs reduces their cost by 60% per can. And that's a huge number. And to help them out even more is this little chart. This shows you the cost of the 13,000 TEU ship in 2008 to be $180 million for that ship. Last year, it reduced to $110 million. That's a 39% drop in cost in just a very short few years. So you see where the business is going. So this is not a reversible trend. This trend is going to be with us all the time. And from the port standpoint, we have to find a way to handle that. The other thing we're facing is, I talk about LA Long Beach, I talk about the East Coast, I talk about the Panama Canal. But I had it told to me one time, says, it's Canada, stupid. That's your competitor. If you look at the global map, it's up there, we're down here. But Canada, right now, Vancouver ports service Canada. The Prince Rupert port services the United States. The difference between Canada and the United States, besides the population density, is just changed totally. You can make different decisions when you have a smaller population than maybe when you have 350 million people. Canada is in the business. The country of Canada is in business. They are actively, they have something called a freight mobility plan. They have a transportation plan. They have a port infrastructure plan. Amazing. I've never heard of that any place on our business pages or our front pages or anything out of Washington, D.C. where we have any. We can't even get a highway bill supported. So the world continues to move. Opportunities are very fleeting. They're here for a while and then they're gone. And someday we wake up and say, what happened? Well, it happened 10 years ago when we didn't do anything. So our biggest competitor is Prince Rupert. They've announced that they have their 600,000 TEU capacity left untouched. And their railroads come right straight down. And Canada is investing billions of dollars. The other thing Canada's talking about doing now is investing in expansion in the Vancouver terminals of several $billions that will actually come down and compete for our product. So we have ourselves a serious situation, and we have to do something. And when we have to do something, we have to get to a stage where we understand the problem well enough that you too can change. How much money do we have to lose, and how much opportunity do we have to lose before we will throw our perceptions and our political biases and all those other stuff out the window and say, we have to operate as a business if we're going to survive long term. And that sounds easy, but that's very hard for a lot of people to do. Together, this last year we were accountable for 48,000 jobs, and the only thing I want to throw out is combined ports of Seattle and Tacoma make up 1/3 of the state's gross domestic product. 1/3. So we either want to protect that business and get over our personal feelings, our vibes, and our sense of loyalty and all those things, or do we want to put that at risk? My view is we need to take a look at that. And combined, you can see that I mentioned LA Long Beach, that's call it 15 million TEUs a year. They're huge. New York, New Jersey is 5, and of course combined we're 3.4. And so we're the third largest seaport in the country. So that's what we're going to protect. So we are going to look at an alliance. I'm going to skip this slide. Because when I talk about the alliance, we're just talking about the shipping business. We're not talking about airports and the fishing in the liner business in Seattle. That's not something we don't want to do. We did announce that we were going to take a look at trying to build an alliance. So together, how can we effectively manage these things? And we're in the process of doing that due diligence now, and it has not been a comfortable process, let me tell you the least. At the least, that's a very difficult thing for us to do. You hear about, well, we can talk as a single unit going down to Olympia. Well, we're not going down to Olympia to tell them anything they don't already know. The transportation bill. We can go back to Washington, D.C. and talk as one. We do that already. The big advantage of an alliance is effective capital utilization and capital preservation and marketing. Because if you have 45% utilization, that means you have a lot of capacity sitting there. It needs to be modernized for big ships. So how is the best thing to go? How do you go about doing that in a cost-effective manner that benefits the region and the people that own these two ports? That's what's really on the table. And so that's the things we're working on, and we're going to go forward. And the other thing I mentioned earlier, when you saw that slide where our container volume has been fixed, we have to find a way to improve that market. So how do we go out, just because we're combined, how do we go out and make a market change where we get more volume? How do we take our business back from Prince Rupert and keep our business and keep the Port of Vancouver from expanding like it's threatening to do? Our biggest ally in this whole thing is LA Long Beach, because they are so congested that if we can get back to work and become very, very competitive and get our volume up and do that, we can take some of our business back without too much difficulty. But I do want to talk a little bit about the labor negotiations. That is, the Port of Tacoma is not involved with that. It's the PMA, which is a combination of all the shipping companies and the union itself. The union represents all the longshoremen on the West Coast, the entire West Coast. So the whole labor issue was really an LA Long Beach local issue over an arbitrator, and the people in Port of Tacoma, Port of Seattle, will wind up paying the price for that because they did slow down. I used to do business with a lot of farmers when I ran Simpson, and one of the clues I always learned was don't ever make a farmer mad at you because they're mad for generations. And the last strike we had, we didn't get a lot of that business back. So we have our hands full. I think we can get some of this back. I think we just need to go forward, but we have to be big ship ready to do that. So I'll just kind of close that comment. The ports, we have a great management team, and we hired John Wolf here a few years ago, and we've just done a great job of doing that. And we are making some huge changes down there. We really have a bright future for the sport. So that's it.